Hello, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Flourishing. So last week in the experience-based slot, which would have been Thursday Seed of Flourishing video, I did an episode on my five places to visit in the UK, or my 5 favourite places to visit from a period when I was in Canada. So I thought it only fair this week to do an episode on my 5 places, or my 5 favourite places to visit in Canada. Obviously it's not the only 5, or it's not the only favourite places I visited, it's the 5 that come to mind with not too much mental digging. At some future episode, I think I'm going to drill it down a bit and do 5 places in Nova Scotia, which is the province that I reside in currently, and also another video on 5 favourite places outside of the UK and Canada. But anyway, back to the ones in Canada. These are roughly in order in which I visited them first. Some of these I've only ever been once. Some I've been multiple times. So the first place I thoroughly enjoyed was Montreal. I visited here, so 2009 I came over to Canada to get married. We had the wedding in Nova Scotia and our honeymoon in a place which I'm going to get to in another tab in a moment, which is another favourite place. But before we got married, I came over a little early because my wife was speaking at a conference, at a library conference in Montreal, specifically at the World Trade Center there. So I tagged along. It was a sort of long weekend type trip, and as a consequence of my wife attending the conference, I had a lot of time to myself wandering around Montreal, and it was great. So some of the favourite places that I remember, and bear in mind we're talking about 13 years ago now, somewhere around there, and so my memory's a little bit foggy because I am doing this off the top of my head without referencing any photographs I may or may not have taken. It was actually an interesting weekend because there was a big music festival on as well, although we didn't go to it. And the other strange thing was there was a gig, I think over somewhere here, I'm not sure exactly where now, where an old school crust punk band were playing. One of the sort of early founders of crust punk, and I could have got tickets, but I felt a bit uneasy about the location of the venue at the time, and as I didn't know Montreal too well, I decided to pass on it. And the band I'm thinking of is Amoebics. They did a one-off gig. It was way after their original sort of formation, so I'm not even sure who was actually in the band at that point, because they'd been around since 1980. So I wasn't sure what the lineup was or anything, so I'd sort of passed on it for a number of different reasons. But I remember, that weekend there was a lot going on gig wise, but it was difficult to just get gigs lined up that would work well alongside the conference as well, and the number of days we were there. But while I was pottering around, and some of the days as well, you know, obviously my wife had some of the afternoon and the evening free, so we'd walk around. One of our favourite places was this. So where we were staying was actually almost in the business district, sort of further down here. And anybody that's visited Montreal will probably be aware that there's this amazing underground system that runs alongside the metro. So alongside the subway in Montreal, you have, I think it's called the path system, from what I remember. Yeah, and it runs alongside that, so you can walk along underground for miles. And there's all these different places like food halls and various other things that are all just underground. And I imagine that's fantastic in the winter. But while I was wandering round, there was this shopping mall that wasn't quite below ground, in as much as, I don't know if it shows that, but there was a glass canopy above it. So where you walk through the central walkway, there was this really nice, so it felt really airy and open, even though it was closed to the elements. So it wasn't actually below the ground, but it had that feeling of being to some degree underground, because it just, the ceiling was so high up. And in there, because a lot of times when we walked through here, it was in the evening, and also at the weekend. And what we found was, particularly as we were close to the business district down here, a lot of the things that were down underground here in this sort of area weren't open at the weekends. But what was cool about this is that it had these Vespa scooters that were just left outside. Well, not outside because it's indoors, but just they were in the walkway as you walk through it. And the nice thing was, it was possible to pretty much walk underground if you wanted to, from the hotel. And I just don't remember specifically the hotel where we were staying, but I know it was in this direction, because I can remember walking through underground, wasn't it? And then maybe having to cross the road somewhere here, and then able to sort of pretty much walk underground again, and then get across to the World Trade Center. And then that underground system of walkways proceeded to continue alongside a lot of the subway stations as well. And it was really lovely just wandering around here in old Montreal as well. And then, you know, the Notre Dame Basilica of Montreal is pretty spectacular. Somewhere around here they had this really nice Christmas shop that's open all year round. You know, the thought you can go in and it just have this wonderful feeling of perpetual Christmas. And then another occasion we sort of walked along here as well. Lovely. And on one of the days when I was just wandering around on my own, I'd already bought like a number of subway tickets, and I went across to here and visited this biosphere. So there's another really cool place to visit. Just to zoom out here, so if you're not familiar with Canada too much, you should be able to see in Canada where Montreal is in relation to a lot of other places. So here's Montreal, we've got Toronto, BC over here. We have Alberta and Calgary there. And of course where I am over in Nova Scotia. And you can see here, I don't know how clear that is, you can see that the border here between the US and Canada there. and then you've got the Great Lakes. So that's my first choice. Second up, so this is where we spent our honeymoon. So this would have been a couple of weeks later than the Montreal trip. We stayed mainly in Chester Basin, somewhere around here. There was a really nice little cottage on the edge of one of these inlets. The only thing I remember, the only downside of this, and I'm assuming it's still the same, is the water had a lot of iron in it. And high iron in water, it's got quite a strange taste, obviously, and I can remember having to add lime cordial. I think everybody knows there's a particular brand that's on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember, but this brand of lime cordial, which both myself and my wife like, but I remember I had to add like a really small amount to it, and now whenever I taste lime cordial, particularly if it's a little bit dilute and not very strong, it always makes me think of this. Reminds me of having to flavour the water a bit because of the slight taste of iron in there. And we spent, I suppose, nearly a week down here almost. And what was nice is along here is lovely, like, Chester. I mean, the whole coastline in Nova Scotia is just fantastic. But, because there's just so much of it for the size of the province. But I remember us regularly sort of driving up and down here. Mahone Bay is lovely, and so is Lunenburg. I had been down to Lunenburg before. I'd gone down around there, close to there, camping when I first visited Nova Scotia in 2008, before I was sort of coming backwards and forwards. So yeah, another cool place to visit in Canada. And if I zoom out, you can sort of see there's Nova Scotia here. Toronto, I've lost count of the number of times I've been here over the years. I don't think it's quite in the double digits yet, but it's pretty close. I think I was going out there every year from about 2010-11 up to 2019 maybe. And you can see, of course, all the different places here. There's just so much to do here. I think, we used to spend a lot of time just walking up and down here on this street, Young Street, particularly. And I don't know if I've got where it's moved back now. I always get confused with this because 401 Games, which is my favourite place to go to, moved further down Young Street and then it moved back again. And I always get a little bit confused because Young Street is just so unbelievably long. Look at it. Yeah, you wouldn't, you could attempt to walk down there, but yeah, it would take you quite a while. I think this must be the original location. Yeah, this would be the original location because Bloor Street's up here. So, often what we do a lot is, there was a place we used to stay just off of Young Street. So, it would be not uncommon for us over the course of staying there a week to basically just walk around here. And occasionally we'd catch the There's a underground system in Toronto, but a lot of the time we'd sort of walk up and down various streets, and obviously visit the Royal Ontario Museum, the Bateau Museum. I think I've been there at least once, and they had that really cool sneaker exhibition where there was a book produced of it, which I actually managed to get the book several years later. It's one of those things I went there and I kicked myself as to not buying the book at the exhibition, and then 4 or 5 years later it turned up at a local chapters for a really, really reasonable price, so I actually purchased that. We've got the Art Museum of the University of Toronto, Kensington Market. I love going around here. Always have to visit Paul's Boutique. If you're a musician, they've got some great vintage synths, or did have. Like I said, I've not been to Toronto since before COVID kicked off, but they have some fantastic vintage synths, or had some fantastic vintage synths in there. And also, like, if you like just gear, like vintage or old pedals that you might not have seen for a while. And there's another really cool guitar one, which would be on, is it Capsule Music? Oh, they're permanently closed, so it can't be. Yeah, and that might have closed. But on Queen Street, I seem to remember. It's alright, I'm just doing this from memory. Yeah, I've gone a bit too far up. There we go, that's better. Yeah, Moog Audio, they're permanently closed as well. Wow, that's really sad. I wonder if they've closed or just moved. That was a really cool place. They had tons of module stuff in there. Like, I used to go in there just if I wanted to, just freak out looking at synthesizers. And they used to stock a lot of the pedals, like Earthquaker Devices pedals and stuff like that. If you wanted to sort of see a wall of Earthquaker, it was a cool place to go. And a lot of other manufacturers of pedals that have really cool artwork. Yeah, so we'd often be up and down Queen Street into various stores along there. There's a really cool second-hand clothes store, vintage clothes store along here as well. And of course, one thing you've got, if you don't want to go outside, is on back over here. So we've got City Hall there, but you've got the Eaton Centre. So from Young Dundas Square all the way down to here, and I think there's a walkway over. This is all just indoors. There is a path system in Toronto similar to the one in Montreal, but it's not quite as walkable, or not that I'm aware of. But there's excellent transit around here, so not too much trouble. And we've stayed in a number of different places. I've stayed at a hotel here. I've stayed at a number of sort of B&Bs and Airbnbs, depending on really where we wanted to go. So, some more over here, others more over just above where the Toronto Public Library is. Places over in Cabbagetown. We stayed at a hotel over somewhere here, and then other places more in the centre. So yeah, cool place to visit. And I've already zoomed out already at other places, but you'll probably know from seeing the other ones where it is in relation to everything else. Okay, Moncton. So this is in New Brunswick. I've been there 2 or 3 times now. A couple of times to see bands at the Moncton Coliseum, or stuff at the Moncton Coliseum. I saw Scorpions here, and and there was someone else we went to see that wasn't a musician as well. But normally we stay over here and wander around. There's some cool shops around here as well. There's a really nice record and video store, which I hope is, it's still going. There's a comic store around here as well, but it's obviously a lot smaller than say obviously Toronto or Montreal. And the other thing that's interesting is to stand here in Boarview Park and actually see the tidal bore. It's pretty spectacular if you've never seen a tidal bore. As it comes down, it's quite a interesting natural phenomenon. And there is a tidal bore in the UK, or one that I'm aware of. And I've never got to see that, so I don't know how it compares. But this, just because of the narrowness of the river, and you can see just all the mud, it's just like this sort of brownish red colour. So yeah. I'm just trying to remember where we used to stay down here. Whether it was this hotel or not. I think it might have been. But yeah, nice place to visit. And it's, it's a few hours drive from Nova Scotia. But it's doable to just drive up there, but it is nice to stay. So from Nova Scotia you sort of come down here. And then finally, in terms of just landscape, this is the most spectacular place I've visited in Canada. And that's, basically this whole area, but there was an extended family reunion in Radium Springs, which is actually in British Columbia. And that's where we ended up and stayed there a few days and actually got to visit Radium Hot Springs itself, but we actually stayed within here and then went on a really nice walk up to the springs. But the region around here is just spectacular. We flew into Calgary, drove to Banff, and then from Banff we stayed a night in Banff at a little boutique inn. We then drove down to Radium, spent a few days there, and then on the last day, when we were due to drive back to Calgary to then catch the flight the following morning, so we stayed at the airport in Calgary overnight, we took a detour up to Lake Louise, and that was super spectacular. There's this place here, so we came down to here and just walked around here, and the view from here just amazing, and there's these really lovely trails as well. So yeah, that was super cool to visit there on the way back. But it's just nice also driving through here in this region. So yeah, Radium Hot Springs is my last choice. But we also, on the last day, it was nice, we got to drive around in Calgary a little bit and visit a few places. There was a game store that we visited, and I just can't remember which one now it was, unfortunately, because I don't think I necessarily bought anything from there. And I'm not sure if it was Revolution Games or... See, again, it's sad, look. All of these places are now permanently... A lot of these places are now permanently closed. Oh well. Oh dear. So anyway, there we have it, my 5 favourite places, or 5 places I've visited in Canada since I've been here. I suppose the odd one out is Montreal, because technically when I visited here I hadn't permanently moved in Nova Scotia. I was still, commuting backwards and forwards. I didn't have residency at that point, or citizenship. So we got Montreal, and then in Nova Scotia it was down in the basin. Lunenburg, Mahone Bay and Chester, but specifically Chester Basin. Toronto, Moncton and Radiant Springs. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next video.